It's preparing.
And you do that via Zoom?
If you just click on more under your Zoom link, it'll bring you to Facebook Live or YouTube Live.
Wow, that's incredible.
It does. It is. I don't know if that's the way with the personal versions, but it is with the pro versions. Okay. It's preparing. And here we are.
And you do that via Zoom?
It's
if
live
you just
now.
click on more under your Zoom link, it'll bring you to Facebook.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
I have to be able to hit pause on that really quickly. Wait on people to get their notifications, and then we'll start as soon as YouTube lets me know that they're here.
Okay.
I do not think we have anybody on Zoom. YouTube is here, though. They are definitely saying that they are. Don't see any Patreons, but YouTube is here.
Does that mean we are live?
We are live. Yes. We're just waiting on some more people to get here. Thank you, Jolie. Thank you, Heather.
Okay. Let's see if I can just share your link.
Thank you. Okay, whenever you're ready, I am. I'm going to turn my phone on Do Not Disturb. We had a phone disturbance yesterday during our podcast that was pretty hilarious.
Okay. Thank you. Ready when you are. So welcome, everyone.
Welcome.
I am Priscilla Lewis, and I am interviewing Pamela Aaralyn today. Most of you know Pamela Aaralyn as the voice of the Elohim. But today we will be talking about Pamela Aaralyn, the avatar of grace. So we will be talking about the change between why she's moved to teach grace. So thank you for being here, Pamela, and talking about your new venture.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So we're just waiting for some questions to come up, and I'll keep an eye on that. So let's start with the main question that everyone wants to know. Why did you change from the voice of the Elohim to the avatar of grace?
Yeah, I have been known as a channel pretty much all of my life, and that term has suited me well, at least in form. And when I realized I wasn't just a form, that there was a lot of content operating through that was a lot more significant as a spirit in a body, I realized that I didn't really prefer a lot of the terms that are floating around most spiritual communities. You know, can I say I'm a mystic? Yes. I see things that are beyond what most people can see and hear them. And I started thinking about that. And I had a dream during my biggest awakening and venture into my realization. And immediately prior to my enlightenment, I had a dream. It was a really interesting dream. And one of my masters in spirit was sitting by my side. And it was Sri Ramana Maharshi, who I love very dearly, a very Christed being. And I remember him saying, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "Well, I know that I'm God. I know who I am." And he's like, "Well, now what are you? What title do you choose, and do you require one?" And I didn't really require one. And it was very interesting because we were rolling through these names of roles and archetypes that I played throughout all of my lifetimes. And he said, "Are you a teacher?" And I said, "That would require teaching something from the mind. And I don't feel that I know anything anymore. I really don't. It's very interesting. Coming from a standpoint of a channel from all types of beings, a galactic historian, I was a very knowledgeable, intellectual person." And when I awakened from that deep samadhi, I just kind of looked around and went, "Oh my God, I don't know anything that I thought I did. And everything that I thought I knew just flew out the window." So while channel still fits insofar as a role, a title, it's not me.
Mm.
And I realized that no matter how many roles and titles we take upon ourselves, I can't say I'm a guru, then you would bow before me and then not realize who you are in your own power. That wouldn't make me incredibly thrilled. I can't say I'm a teacher because to me that's head stuff. And I released all knowledge of what I thought that I knew in enlightenment. I just released it all and went, I really need a reset because I'm seeing things completely differently now. I don't even want to teach the same things anymore. I realized that there weren't many terms left that fit, and I just didn't want to choose one. And the last thing that my master said in that dream was, realize that I stand beside you, not before you, not in front of you, and I'm not behind you. There is a reason now.
Yes, I
And
completely understand.
yeah, he asked me the question again, what are you? And I didn't answer, and I woke up. And then I had another dream about the same thing, about roles and the roles, the things that people call themselves, whether it be psychic or channel or medium or all the various roles and titles. And I went through every single role that I've had of great significance in all lifetimes. And I was standing before a big crowd of people. There were thousands and thousands of people. And there was a huge wall between them and God. And the wall was of their own creation, but it was massive in this dream, like the Great Wall of China times 1010. And one of them said to me, how can you show us? You have so many gifts. You've had so many roles. How can you show us? We know God's over there. How can you show us what's over there? So they tossed one version of me over the wall. They stood on top of each other, one here and one pushed the other one up and pushed the other one up. And eventually they started pulling me up and I got over to the wall and they hoisted the guru me over the wall because I've had that role in many lifetimes. The guru primarily stayed over on the other side of the wall, taught people and didn't want to come back because the teachings were all encompassing, stayed and kind of came back a little, crawled back over the wall and said, it's really good over here, but I can't help you because it's your responsibility to come.
Yeah.
And then they lifted the other version of me over the wall. And the other version of me was a rishi, a seer. So the rishi hopped over the wall with great help and was fascinated by everything that she saw. She went into deep vision, a deep vision quest. It was very shamanic. She kind of sat there in meditation and divine bliss and deep samadhi. That's the joy and bliss and divine ecstasy that yogis feel. And she did not wake up. She just stayed there. So that was a disappointment to the people on the other side of the wall, Earth.
Mm.
So they hoisted another version of me above the wall. And this kind of kept going and going. They hoisted the saint above the wall and she went mad with God. She was on fire. She was just jumping for joy and dancing and singing. And just her body was contorting from different versions of spirit coming in and showing her God. And she kind of went into divine ecstasy and she was dancing and just blissful. And she just went insane. She couldn't come back. So all these versions of me were going over the wall, and eventually they lifted the avatar me over the wall. The avatar wouldn't go, however. The avatar got to the top of the bridge and she sat there straddling each side of the wall. And she looked down and she saw everything and she noted it. And she said, you have to come, but I can't teach it to you, for I know nothing. I'm not your guru. I'm not any of these things that you can describe in your mind, and neither is God. So she hoisted each person above the wall, one by one, and just sat there in the middle, refusing to go, knowing and understanding what she saw, but she could not choose a title. She said, I'm your bridge. This is why I chose Avatar.
So the avatar of grace, grace is a word that can be interpreted in many ways. So what is your definition of grace?
Grace cannot be explained by any human condition, and it is a condition, by mind definitions. It can't be described by logic. It can't be described in a way, but it is the stillness of God in motion. You can formulate accessibility of grace through understanding, feeling, and working in your life with divine sound current. So for me, the first thing I did in my life was sing. I didn't speak. I didn't say mom. I didn't say dad. The first thing I did was sing and hum and make interesting noises in various languages that no one at the time knew quite what it was. They just knew that I was a very vocal child, humming to myself and blabbering interesting things. As I grew to be preened by all of the masters who speak through me, as me, with me, whatever you want to call it, within channeling, I began to notice that the things that I'm singing have to do with unique tones that help each person learn who they are. And no one can tell you that. Not your psychic, not your mystic, not your guru. These tones do something to provide an instantaneous accessibility to grace, and you go into your deepest spiritual nature. These tones are a path to enlightenment. Grace is the sound of God that stills your mind so that God can move within you, through you, and eventually as you. Grace is creativity and oneness simultaneously. Grace is love and then the forgiveness that comes with hate. Grace is innocence and then the forgiveness that comes with judgment. Grace is every level of love that underlies every single frequency within the entire emotional gambit of all that is. Grace is your heart before you access its truest divine nature. And it is who I am and what I'm here to offer you. This is why I started creating source tones, because later in life, the masters said, you are chanting Vedas. And I went, oh, what is that? And after enlightenment, I really went, what is that? I had a strong interest in pull and still do. And when I awakened from my samadhi, I began to chant names of God, not really knowing what it is. And if I wasn't chanting names of God, I was chanting Upanishads. If I wasn't chanting that, I was chanting divine sacred texts that were unfamiliar to me, like the Japji. Either way, I was chanting unique divine sound currents, and I didn't quite understand why. So I started really understanding and trying to connect them with a way that I could help people. So I began to ask some of my clients to be blessed by them, and I would chant them on their behalf in my mind. And I noticed, and I call this blessings of grace, that when I did this, miracles would occur. And I thought, well, I don't want to be your healer. I don't want to be your teacher. I don't want to be your guru. I don't want to be your healer. I am not the person who gave you a miracle. This tone that I chant on your behalf sunk deeply as a channel. I'm able to become a being because I don't see any difference between my form and yours. So I would go deeply into that person's essence, chant their tone with them, for them, as them. And miracles would happen, physical miracles. People began to write to me. People began to text me. My phone was ringing off the hook. I began to get interesting feedback that related to some amazing miracles. We had cancer disappear on an operating table. We had, everything that's happened in the past 3 months since my enlightenment that I'm so excited to share with you. We had people getting out of wheelchairs. We've had people heal from multiple sclerosis, Lyme disease, dementia. We've had lost pets come home. We've had people with chronic, what was the last one last week? Chronic regional pain syndrome disappear. And then I thought, okay, I love to do that, but I really don't want anyone to bow before me. So what can I do for you in a different way that gives you the power of doing the same thing that I do? Since I'm you, why can't you do it?
Yeah.
So I began to share with people their unique source tones that I would hear when I listened to their soul. And then I taught them how to say it and how to use it. And I began to see more miracles. So that's how it all began.
Yes. So you have mentioned a lot of what source tones are. So these source tones is individual to each person.
Yes.
Okay. And you will be able to give that to your Patreons.
Yes, that's why I created Patreon tier 2, because it gave people the accessibility of that divine sound current to have that unique gift of knowing what your, I call it the God note, the God sound, the source tone. Source tone sounds a lot more ambiguous than, something that you're going to judge as a religion, right? Because this is not religion. The tones that I get, while 70% of them appear to be very Vedic, they appear to be from Upanishads. Some of them are Hebrew names of God from the Kabbalah. I've gotten over 1,000 of those so far in Hebrew names. Some of them are names of God that relate to a combination, like 3 or 4 names of God simultaneously. So what I've noticed is they are unique sacred names of God, these source tones. And these gods, what I mean by God is not a religion. They are fractals of your truest divine nature.
I think that is a beautiful gift anyone can have. Why are they necessary for our spiritual development?
Because sound is God. Sound is actually something that, when you think about the realms of time, comes before light. Think about one of your older spiritual texts if you want to. Even in the Bible, it said, and God said, let there be light. When you speak, it becomes creation. I call this the divine word of God. This is not a religious thing. And in God's word, that's your word. When you sing your own word, you are calling in all of your mastery, all of your spiritual abilities, all of your necessary healings. You can remove soul contracts if you're done with them, and reclaim your sovereignty. There are many things that you can do with these tones, and many things naturally happen before you even know what you're doing. And that is the fun part of why they're necessary, because the vibration does the work. You're not visualizing anything. You don't have to sing out loud. You say them in your mind. Quiets down the ego. It quiets down extraneous mind chatter that can prevent you from hearing, seeing, feeling, and knowing God. That is why it's important. When you chat these tones, the whole world kind of just goes away for a while, and it's you and God. And then when you open your eyes again, what you see, feel, hear, and know is dramatically different. It's more peaceful, and it connects you to you.
So it's almost like it's not the tone in itself, but it's the vibration of it. So how can this be used for healing and awareness and one's enlightenment journey?
Well, that's a good question, because even the word enlightenment is a bit of a human term, and is highly misperceived. I know that my unique way of misperceiving how life would be after enlightenment had to do with thinking that there would be no more pain, thinking that you would be floating around in bliss all the time, and there was only a short range of bliss, joy, and love emotions that are accessible, that you would be in divine ecstasy all the time. And you're not. You just simply shift from karmic expansion into the dharmic awareness of your divine perfection. So I simply realize that I am God, which means that there's nothing to be afraid of. I don't feel a level of incompleteness. I don't feel a level of lack. I don't feel lower frequency emotions in the same way. I still feel them, but they do not become suffering. Pain gets my attention. I go into it, and it immediately begins to transform itself. And it's very interesting. I experienced grief recently after enlightenment. I didn't expect that. It is an incredible human experience for me. And it is also difficult for me to explain, because in one way it's beyond anything that a human brain can comprehend. I can't teach you enlightenment. I can teach around it. I can teach about it, but it's not it. And it will never be it until you realize who you are for the first time. You will not know what the heck I'm talking about until then. It's like me trying to explain heaven to you. You just can't. It's so beautiful. It's beyond anything you've ever seen. But when I experienced grief after enlightenment, I went, oh, does this mean? And then an immediate joy came over, because the ego would like to say, does this mean something bad? And God mind said, I don't know, does it? You get to choose now. Oh, really? Power of God mind choice? I can immediately choose not to create from karmic implication, doubt, shame, criticism, guilt, anger. Yes. And it's simply the awareness of that choice. Does not mean that life will become perfect. So what I mean by I'm enlightened simply means that I see the light of God within me, but more than seeing it for me, I hear it, I feel it, I know it, I am it. And all of my expressions are an expression of it. And it means nothing more than that. It is not a hierarchy. It does not mean I'm better than anyone. It does not mean I'm lesser than. Does not mean I am more pure. It simply means that I have more accessibility to grace than most, because fear's gone. When you know you're God, there's nothing to fear.
And many times fear is what holds us back as well.
Yes.
Do you believe that sound creates everything, including our bodies?
Absolutely. But it's not a matter of belief. Because when I give you the choice of belief and I present it to you, what do? You choose one thing or you choose another thing. Source tones give you access to something in the middle of all that, something unknown, something you've never accessed before, because you'd hold no human reference point to define grace. Source tones give you instantaneous access to your innocence, your purity, divine compassion, which is a technology that leads to trust, acceptance, forgiveness, and ultimately grace. Grace is the key to enlightenment. It is the key to what people are calling ascension. It is the key to all of these things that you are seeking when you say, I seek God. And eventually you stop seeking because you know that you are it. You are your answers.
So how do you see your teachings change now from what you used to teach?
Yeah. In Practical Enlightenment, what I also understood, like on Patreon, there's 2 different tiers, and one part of Patreon is called Practical Enlightenment, because I realized that for me, it wasn't going to an ashram and spending my life there. I take kids to robotics team competitions. I take children to dance recitals. Um, I have a huge family. You know, my sister and her husband live with me too, and they have 2 small kids. We have 6 children in our household and 4 very awakened adults. um, so when you really think about how to be practical about this, you're bringing heaven on earth. You're not ascending or going anywhere. Enlightenment is not an arrival. You simply realize that you already are there. And you are awakening to building heaven on earth in a practical way. So I deal with people like myself, moms, people who are normally single moms. That's me. I'm single. I deal with corporate business people. I deal with kind of the undercover yogis, if you will. And these are the people who come to me. So in Practical Enlightenment, I teach them how to meditate and clear your mind in 20 minutes or less with these source tones. 20 minutes of commitment in your day. If you say you don't have it, I will challenge you on that. Because if I have it, I know you can. So I get up in the morning and I do these recitations of these source tones. And if I have time, I'll do more, a lot more. And I could do them all day. It is instantaneous bliss. And these tones brought me into my enlightenment. They are the key to it. And I spent my life listening to them, but until I really applied it in this simple way, saying it in this simple way in my mind, and considering self-inquiry even in a simple way, because these tones clear your mind so that you can ask the important questions. So I couldn't understand what Ramana Maharshi was teaching me as a guidance spirit about how to inquire until I started feeling the sound of God in reverberating through my essence every day. And it only took about, I think by the time I fully committed to it, I'm a little bit stubborn and slow on the uptake for learning and commitment, like most people here on earth. I chanted them for 3 months every day. It was a big commitment, and it brought me into an amazing, powerful ecstasy. And when I awakened, I couldn't, it was the "and Jesus wept" verse. I just kept crying and crying and crying and staring, going, oh my gosh, trees don't look the same. It's me in a tree looking back at me. Priscilla is Pamela looking back at me. My children are little me's looking back at me, smiling and reverberating energy of what myself is saying to me. And I just walk around crying, going, oh my gosh, this is it. This is what this, oh, this is amazing. I didn't quite know how to explain it. So this is me trying.
Yes. So we have covered a lot about the source tones and what they are for, but how can we know how to best use them?
That is what we're here to learn today. And we also are going to be discussing it in tier 2 of Patreon. So for the blessings of grace, that's for people who want to do it every day. When you sign up for that, within that same month of your sign up, and sometimes it takes a while because I have hundreds of people asking for their tone and only I can give them, it takes about 10 to 20 minutes of meditation for me to get it, for most people, unless I really know you. So I go into that, you get your tone, and then when you are committing to tier 2 of my program, basically you learn how to use them. It's simple. When you get them, the only thing you do is calm your breath down in a specific way, by breathing a specific way that's gentle and long. This is not a Kriya, even though I do teach plenty of Kriyas in Practical Enlightenment. And blessings of grace, which is the next step up from practical enlightenment, we don't do any of those things. The Kriyas prepare you for this. So what you do is you breathe in through your nose, you breathe out through your mouth, and then you say 1. Do that 3 times in your mind only, not out loud. The moment you speak with your mouth, the head starts. So don't speak with your mouth unless you are a person who is highly aligned towards chanting like I am. You cannot do this you can't do it out loud. You'll have different results for chanting these source tones out loud versus in your mind. Very different results, but start in your mind. Everyone, please. So you breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, and then just say 1 in your mind. Do that 3 times and then chant your unique source tone. Okay? That's all you do. And then you keep chanting your source tone without the oneness practice any further. Just keep chanting it in your mind. It doesn't have to be a specific perfect pitch. So for those of you who are saying, I'm tone deaf, I don't really hear pitch, don't worry about that. You're saying it. It's the rhythm of it. So I've noticed that it is the rhythm, the divine universal heartbeat has a rhythm within us. And when you chant these source tones in a certain rhythm that I give to you, then that's the only thing you need to do. All thoughts will float away. And when thoughts go away from the human mind, you can hear, see, feel, and know the God mind that comes from God's heart in you. When that happens, it is amazing. And the more you do it, the deeper you go into your life purpose, the deeper you go into miracles for your emotional and physical health. I've had instantaneous healings when people do that for themselves. I've been doing it on your behalf for a long time, about 20 years now. And we've experienced a lot of miracles. And I work with people in that way for quick healings, because that is the nature of the avatar. We connect with grace, which makes us have an ability to connect to miracles. However, you can do this. You can access grace on your own. If you don't want to or don't have the funds to work with me individually, this is why I charge like $33 to get them on your own. It's amazing. I'm not trying to make money off of it. I'm just trying to share it with the world. And that small investment, that $33, is just a divine number that covers my cost of doing so many source tones for thousands of people around the world, because it takes away from my time to do readings when I'm doing this, and my time to do channelings, and my time to do other classes that I would charge more for. So if I get enough people paying this small amount, then basically speaking, I can share more about these techniques with you, and they will grow and they will grow and they will grow. But you don't need more than this. That's the fun thing. You don't have to visualize. It doesn't take visualizing white light. This is not a guided visualization in that way. There's no visualization. You just say them in a certain way, in a certain rhythm. For English professors out there, it's very onomatopoeic. So it's like da 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 da. It is like that.
Okay, brilliant. So it's great that we don't have to do any visualization,
No,
just
you
use
don't.
the tone that's given. But it sounds very similar to a meditation, though. Would you say it's almost like a meditation?
I would say that it is. It is very transcendental in nature, and it helps you transcend the human thought enough so that, again, you can hear, feel, see, and know the God mind. And you just observe God for the first time. That's why it is so miraculous.
So, are you ready for some questions?
Yes.
Brilliant. Okay, we have covered so much already. So, this is a very interesting question from Freddie. I know source tones is very personal. How, in the case of two beings, twin flames, from the same spark of light, can he use the same source tone as well?
Nope. He is a fractal of a unique divine expression with his unique tones. And as a matter of fact, you should not share your tones. It's sort of like, you know, in some religious traditions, they have undergarments, you know, sacred garments. They have things that they don't share with people. They have sacred names in some of the religions that they don't share with people. They have sacred things that are unique to your sacred journey. This is sacred to you. You wouldn't share your underwear, so don't share your tone. Got it?
Okay.
In other
And
words, karmically transfer it. That's why I use the underwear metaphor.
yeah.
Because, you know, you have your own karmic energy, and unless that person is ready to handle it, and you won't know unless you are really standing in your enlightenment, you won't know if another person is able to handle. And in most cases, they're not, even if you think they are. Twin flames are no exception to that. So it's very important to keep your tone to yourself. Don't play it all over your house. Don't tell people about it. It's between you and God. Such the most sacred thing you could possibly have. And there's no reason to share it.
And you can use this tone in any time of day, and there's no limit to how many times you can use it.
There's no limit. Ramana Maharshi told me to do it until I am meditating without meditating. So I did. I just follow instructions. It's as simple as that. I have noticed that it works best when done in the morning, but I've noticed some interesting results to do it at night as well, that it calms the mind down to do it at night. But it works faster if you do it, you know, in the morning. It works faster to bring you into your abilities and for healing and connection and realization if you do it in the morning. Um, Someone did ask a question about what languages are the
Yes,
tones.
there
Um,
is.
I did notice that, and I find it important to bring up because you are unique beings. You have different experiences that you're learning from. So I've noticed that the languages come in Sanskrit. They're ancient languages. Sanskrit primarily. So that's the biggest language that I'm getting from the tones, and they correspond with Vedas about 70% of the time. Granted, I'm working with different people, and if they're not ready for that, or if they're just coming in a different divine sound current, I will get something that's Gurmukhi, and it would be a portion of a recitation. You know, I have gotten the names of God come through, particularly the Aramaic names of God and the Hebrew names of God are coming up quite often, particularly for people in Israel in particular, in that side of the world. I've gotten some Gaelic. I've gotten some ancient Mayan languages that I've never heard before because they're that old. I would probably need an archaeologist or some historian who goes deeper into that languages. I would need a linguist to understand some of the things I'm getting. So trying to understand them from the mind has not helped me at all. But I awakened from enlightenment, and for days and days and days, one of my assistants came over from Germany to help me with this. I just sat there. He and I sat there together and just wrote these names. I'm like, oh, my hand was about to fall off because I was writing everything that was going through my mind, and I have hundreds of pages, just thousands and thousands of these names. And I'm like, well, why am I doing this? Well, that became blessings of grace.
Mm.
Became everything that I'm now giving to you, because I was hearing everything. I was hearing everyone's tones. When I awakened from enlightenment, I heard their prayers as well. When I heard their prayers, shortly thereafter, the next stage was hearing the tones that answered the prayers. I don't know if those of you remember my story about my enlightenment, but when I had been in meditation, in a deep samadhi, it's a divine blissful meditation where you're in a trance, you're very unaware. I had to have some help with the kids. I had to have a lot of help. And when I came out of that meditation, I was hearing people's prayers. One of my friends was in a deep suicidal ideation, and I could hear her going, please help me. I don't want to live anymore. And I went, oh gosh. And then she texted me, please help me. I don't want to live anymore. And then another of my friends said, I really don't know what's going on with my partner, blah, blah, blah. God, please help him, blah, blah, blah. And then she texted me, Pamela, I don't know what's wrong with my partner. Please send a blessing, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. And I was pulling out of my garage at the time, hearing their prayers. I couldn't drive. I had to put my car in park halfway out the garage. And I'm looking at my text phone, at my phone, seeing texts coming through from my closest friends. So it started with my closest friends, and then it extended out into the world. So if you send prayers, my higher self tends to answer. And I've gotten many expressions since Enlightenment, many emails and texts and testimonials about them praying in a way that would call my higher self in, not to me, but sort of for my assistance. I hear those prayers, and my higher self has a mind of her own. So I get a lot of that. When I use these tones on people's behalf, people will come back and tell me about their experiences with it.
So when a source tone is given to an individual, is that when they came into existence?
This is beyond time. However, our cellular nature tends to remember time in the way that you would have accumulated diseases and disorders. Time is sort of a dysfunction in that way, as a condition. Time is a program, which comes with pain. It comes with suffering. It comes with diseases. It comes with fears. It comes with conditioning, basically. Mm-hmm. So this is beyond that. However, if there's something that you really need to integrate, you'll notice that it may correlate in a certain way with the language that pulls you through a certain aspect of you that you need to release.
And does our source tone change at all, ever?
I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't observed people's tones changing yet. I haven't observed it yet, but there's always something to learn that I don't know about. And we'll see. So far, they haven't.
Brilliant. Okay. And can an individual discover their own source tone?
I don't know. If you are really connected to grace in the same way that I am, if it's possible for me to discover it, then it's possible for you to discover it. But can you? Only you know. My suggestion is deep meditation, inquiry, and asking. Just asking for it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So when we go into that silence, can we play the source tone like on a repeat when listening with headphones? Not the same technique as saying it within your mind.
It's not the same technique. You can chant it in your mind, which is the most powerful thing that you can do. You can chant it out loud, but the thing is, it's so sacred. So I tend to keep it private. I don't tend to chant my source tone in front of people. I've never done that at all because it's between me and God. Do I chant it in the middle of nature for the birds? Absolutely.
Brilliant. Okay. We are going through a lot of these questions, so thank you very much for submitting them. Okay.
Thank you.
Is it okay to be mindful whilst doing the practice, or must we concentrate?
It's not a matter of focused concentration. The tones do that for you. And at first, all thoughts will fall away. And then thoughts will start to come back, but you will notice that they are more connected to God mind thoughts. And when they aren't, if they are mind thoughts that are still there, they kind of float on by in the way that blood would go through a centrifuge and the cells kind of separate and become one again. So you see them fly off and you see them going around. If you were in the center of the centrifuge, watching blood go around and separate, you see a little particle of blood, for scientists who understand this, flick away from the center of that cell and go off somewhere around the centrifuge because that's what source tones do. They vibrate and they spin. They pull you into your frequency, but you'll notice thoughts just kind of go, oh, there goes one. Oh, hello, bye-bye. Oh, hello, bye-bye. In the same way that a centrifuge works. And then they will not come back around again to the center of your core until they are from God mind. And when they do, they're indescribable. I cannot describe what happens when that does happen, but when it happens for me, it's this big aha. It's like I opened my mouth and God spoke. Or in these cases, I can't even speak it. Sometimes I just sit and weep. But I can sing it, I can create a song with it, and you have been observing me doing that. For patrons who are watching me lately, I can create deep meditations with these God thoughts. I can create with them because of them. So there's various stages of what these source tones provide.
Mm. And our dear friend Ian Howard says, should we make any preparations for entering into this oneness? As you said, because it feels like we might go into a daze, or we might go into a state of high frequency that we might not be grounded enough.
Mm-hmm. I don't advise doing them while driving.
Yes.
Or operating a train in our friend's case. If it's on automatic, I don't know how trains work there in London. I don't suggest doing those sort of things. I don't suggest doing that until you get used to how this is going to affect. I do my source tones while I'm driving now, but it took me a long time to get there, because initially when I was doing them, you saw what happened. I've had 33 samadhis because of these source tones. I know number 33, great number. I awakened to and realized my enlightenment. I realized God on samadhi number 33. So basically, but it took a lot of practice of knowing what was going to happen, knowing how it's going to feel, knowing how it was going to affect me at the cellular nature. And I can't say knowing before, but knowing during and then applying afterwards. So don't try this while driving right away. Get used to it first, please.
So it seems like you are going through this change, and I love it, because through the journey of discovery and learning, we learn new things about ourselves and who we truly are. So you talk about these samadhis. Would you be able to explain what that is? Because it seems like you have been through many of those.
Yeah. Samadhi is a branch of yoga that is the ultimate connection and oneness to God, and it produces a state of ecstasy and divine bliss. Does it remain that way? No, not normally. It's not meant to be a state that is maintained. Otherwise, you wouldn't still be in a body on a planet with creative purpose. If you have a body, you still have creative purpose, teachings to share, healings to share, whatever it is that you align towards. And these source tones help with that when you chant them out loud. That's stage 3, which we talk about in Blessings of Grace. So there's the first stage of chanting them in a unique rhythm in your mind, resetting your brain with the one technique, which we've discussed here on YouTube before, and then chanting them in your mind until all thoughts fall away. And then you'll notice that thoughts come, but they are different. And when you start to notice that thoughts come, but they are different and powerful, you learn how to use them by chanting them out loud. And you can do that, but please do so privately. Again, this is a private scenario between you and God. And you do them when you are quietly meditating, when no one else is around, because this is your energy between you and God within you. And it's your path that you are creating. With that in mind, someone had a unique question that I found interesting to answer. And your question was, are there billions of tones, since there are over 7 billion, close to 8 billion people on the planet right now? You come in soul groups. And because all of you are the same being anyway, it's more relevant that we give you tones that are connected to that particular soul group. So I'll notice that I can give the same source tone to hundreds of the same person because they are in that same unique soul group. So that's a little secret, that I don't often share with people. You're assuming that your tone is not going to be exactly like anyone else's, but if you're in a very close soul group, you might be surprised how similar they are. There will be a unique deviation based upon what I call a swari. So what that is a way of pronunciation of things, like in one of these syllables, 3 syllables within one Veda, there is a unique way to pronounce the same thing, and you can pronounce it different ways based upon what Veda it is, why you're using it, etc. I've seen different people who chant Vedas pronounce, they say that it's the same, but I've observed them closely. And I've observed that you can use the same Veda with a slight dialect or difference in tone, in pitch, in variation, and rhythm. So it's the same Veda or the same name of God, for the people in the same soul group, but is chanted uniquely different based upon your essence, your fractal of God as it creatively comes through you. Another question I'm getting is how will you know how to pronounce them? What I send is a video, not an email. So you will get a small video with an attachment to a link to this video so that you know how to begin to use them. That's the first thing. And all of this video describes that. And then you also are told your unique pronunciation of that. And that's what makes it unique. It's not the Veda itself. I've given the same Veda to 200 people in 1 week alone. Okay. But it's slightly different because you're slightly different in the way that God is expressing through you.
Mm.
And I see differences in how to use them and what effects they have based upon the person using them and how dedicated they are in using them.
Okay. So like many, I'm still understanding everything what you're trying to teach all of us. So with these source tones, will they assist us with releasing negative core beliefs, energy blocks? And will they teach us how to self-inquire to become more enlightened?
Because enlightenment can't be taught. It just is. So what it does is it gives you accessibility to your true divine nature before programs came into existence, before beliefs, before conditioning. So what that means is it stops all the conditioned programs in the head, from the brain and the spine. So then what happens is if brain says no more conditions because God is here, spine, Kundalini wakes up. So brain, spine, starting in the brain with an entrained brain. It entrains your brain. For those of you who are watching my video about Dolores Cannon's information, all of this came succinctly in a way for me with brain entrainment because of these tones. I now have an entrained brain. And that was the first step for me, was going into enlightenment because of how quiet my head is. And when you're quiet enough, you feel and know and hear and see God. And then thoughts come about differently. So the first step would be, to chant them in a unique way that quiets you down. Do you understand what I mean?
Yes, definitely.
So you get that. And then there's other steps. There's 2 other steps that you get the longer you want to go deeply into, your commitment to using them.
Okay. But I'm sure that you will teach us in your classes how to use them, hopefully.
Yes. So that's step 1. And we have foundations, the class foundations, and then we have the class principles of Kripa Yoga that we're teaching. So this is a part of my specific yoga program called Kripa Yoga. Kripa is identified as grace. It is divine grace, the highest form of grace. That's what it translates to. So this is also called Yoga of Grace. So in the Kripa Yoga or Yoga of Grace program, it is in both the tier 1 and tier 2. Tier 1 prepares you for it. And then tier 2, if you go straight into it, which is just as easy to do, you don't need preparation, but the mind tends to make you think that you do, which is why we have a tier 1 to make it practical. But for tier 2, you get your tone. It's unique to you. You get a file. You're taught how to use it. That's yours to keep forever. And then we teach classes. You go through the foundations class, which is there in the December program that I just created for you. You also have the principles class, which will be taught, I think it's the middle or the end of December. That one's coming up. So it's on the schedule for December for tier 2 patrons as well. And then we'll be doing the 3rd one in January. So we're going into 3 different major classes on how to use these tones. And then we're going to keep going as we do throughout the program.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And how does one practice grace alongside our soul stones?
Grace gives you accessibility to everything that there is. Grace, you already are. You don't have to practice what you already are. You have to realize what you already are. And these tones do that. They help drop judgments. They help you, judgments fall away, especially judgments of core beliefs involving shame and criticism, some of the negative core beliefs that make you feel lost and abandoned and rejected and neglected and disempowered. I'm naming some of the negative core beliefs that you as a society have conditioned yourselves to believe throughout time. These are some of the bigger negative core beliefs. And what happens is they just go the more you do this. You don't care anymore about what the mind's trying to say because you can't hear it anymore. It's not there in that way.
Yes. I have found that as well. My mind is empty a lot of the time during the day, and it's almost as when you need information, the information will be there.
Yeah.
So is that what you are talking about? Just opening yourself up to receive?
Yes, and you can't listen to the sound of God if the mind is talking, either in your head or out loud. And there are a lot of background scripts that run and run and run. And we've created many mental process modalities that seem to address those scripts, but the mind is incredibly tricky. So you could think that you cleared something, but if it's still talking, it's going to convince you that it's still there, even though it's not.
Yes.
And this is kind of a problem that I've noticed in spiritual communities. We have some amazing processes out there. And then people come to me and say, yeah, I did this and I did that. I did all my shadow work. And why do I still feel that I'm not whole? And that is because you don't have accessibility to grace. Do your shadow work. It's fine if you feel it, but your brain likes to convince you that you're still not whole. And the only way to feel whole is through realization, through knowing that you are God.
You are already whole.
Exactly. But it doesn't feel that way when the mind's going, you suck.
Mm. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Mm. And our mind's always chattering and saying that.
You didn't do good enough. I wonder if you could have said something different. I wonder if you could have done something better, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes. So would this be like a psychedelic experience when chanting the source tones?
It can be. It can lead you into a full samadhi. Everyone seems to, well, I won't say everyone because that's such a broad, sweeping generalization. I've observed that many people handle it differently. I've observed people go into divine ecstasy. That's similar to what happens in shamanic journeys. I've observed people go into a deep peace. I've observed people weeping. I've observed that it makes them angry and that they need to release something. And I've observed that those things sometimes come out to be released and you will feel that. But whatever needs to go, goes. You feel it, you release it, it's done. I've seen it happen in the first time someone chanted a source tone, the third time, the fifth time. I've seen people take a whole month. I really haven't seen anybody yet take more than a month. It seems to be the optimal number on this. I'm at the minimum of full realization would be 33 days. But while using these tones, I've seen people go into full realization. That's what it was for me, was a minimum 33 days. I felt really better. I started to clear beliefs. I started to not be as worried. Anxiety was my biggest struggle. Prior to enlightenment, I was a very anxiety-ridden, worrying person. Worrying about everyone's well-being, not so much my own, but everyone else at that time. I'm the standard, healer archetype, kind of transferring everything, going, you know what, I can do something better, or I didn't do something good enough. And all of that was there. And it was making me sicker and sicker and sicker physically. And when I started chanting these tones more diligently, because I've always chanted them, but it's not a matter of chanting them and then when you feel like it or when you have time or while you're stuck in traffic. It's a matter of getting up in the morning, sitting your butt in meditation and chanting these tones for 20 minutes minimum. And when you start that, your entire day is different because you carry those frequencies into your day and night and evening. And if you want to, you can chant them again to clear your mind before you go to sleep, although it's not necessary. That's what I advise in this program, is to chant them in the morning.
Yeah.
Because you wake up clear most of the time. And if you don't, this will do it. And if you do wake up clear and you start to chant these before you do anything else, before you go walk the dog, before you go do things for someone else in the household, including your children, if you're like me and you need to get up and go to the potty real fast, you can do that. But other than that, come back to your bed and chant these things, or go to your meditation room. Do whatever you need to do. So there's various stages of them, of how to use these tones, but this is the most important part. You can do it easily, quietly, within your own mind, and it only takes 20 minutes a day. 20 minutes a day can change your entire life, physically, emotionally, spiritually.
Are they ready to make the commitments?
We'll find out.
Okay, so when the blessing started for you, and you said that you started writing down all these names of gods, right? Are these part of our source tones?
Yes. The vowels in the names of God are the source tones.
So just God as in God? Or are we talking about all types of, are we talking about all different types of gods?
We can get into religion very quickly if we go down that train of thought.
That's
But
why
I
I
can
want to
tell you,
distinguish that.
yeah. So what I mean by God is overall source. And when humans started creating through the concept of time, and it's just a concept, it's not a truth, we got creative and we created all these names that we identify with and as. And if there's something that really brings us more into who we are, if we have a specific contract that's going to help us learn quickly, or help us learn more powerfully, these tones just are a gentle reminder of who you are on the contractual level and above it, and more importantly above it. So I can't say is your tone is going to be Krishna. Okay, I can't say your tone is going to be Jesus, but I did get someone the other day who has her tone that came across more like a symbol. It looked like the tetragrammaton, and they told me how to pronounce it, which most people don't talk about how to pronounce it. Like there's this very sacred information how to pronounce the tetragrammaton, which is where eventually Yeshua got his name from that symbology. So names of God are sacred and powerful. The syllables and consonants and pronunciations within them are different for every person. And they give them to me differently in that way, even though it may or may not be the same name based upon what soul group you come through. But I've noticed it's always a sacred language that's ancient. I have noticed this, that the languages that come through, and some of them aren't human. Some of them are light language from a world that cannot be identified. Some of them are Pleiadian. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah. Okay, beautiful. Because I think, when we use that word source, God, some people can interpret it differently. So I thought I'll make it clear and just ask that question because someone else did also ask. So thank you so much for answering that.
You're welcome.
Okay. I think that you have covered all the questions and we have been talking for about an hour. So is there anything else you'd like to discuss or would like to share with us about your teachings and moving forward with you?
Yeah. Well, I do want to discuss that, most of you, as you have observed, most of everything has gone over to patreon.com. So if you go to patreon.com/Pamela Aaralyn, my name, you'll see two different things that you could join. Tier 1 is Practical Enlightenment. It's preparing you for this. You don't get your tones for that, but you do get the channelings. You do get the one class per month. You do get a satsang, which is kind of like a live Q&A, but a much more sacred way of doing it, which is an alignment and group healing as well. And you get those sort of things every month. And then if you go to tier 2, you get that and the Blessings of Grace program, which is pretty powerful. And there's a lot of behind the scenes. Hey, this is what I'm learning about it. Hey, I woke up and had a dream about it. There's a lot of personal behind the scenes thing. I used to share a lot of my behind the scenes private videos about my life and about my experiences on Facebook. I don't do that anymore because I shared on this program. And I share my personal experiences with chanting these tones on your behalf. I do a group healing called Blessings in Grace, where I will take a source tone and chant them for everyone, and anyone that's in that source group will be affected by it. So we've seen like hundreds of people be healed at the same time by doing one Blessings of Grace with one name of God. And I chant them in unusual places. You'll see me at the top of Zion National Park. You'll see me at the Grand Canyon doing it like you did last week and the week before that. You'll see those sort of blessings come across your threshold, which is you get a lot of blessings, a lot of group healings, very individual. And it's interesting because you can put your name, in the comments section of each blessing and get a unique blessing, for yourself there as well. So it's very interactive. You hear me chant the names of God and create songs that are unique. And then you hear me chanting certain recitations involving the names of God. Today, I chanted the Japji, but I haven't posted it yet. You hear me playing around with my harmonium, which I just got in the mail maybe a month ago. So I'm still learning. You hear me doing the names of God with the singing bowls. You get to hear my voice that's involved in this as well, a lot more, and my personal behind the scenes stories, along with classes about how to use these tones that are going deeper and deeper and deeper as the months go by. Also on Patreon, you will get months. It doesn't just go for that month. I've been a member of Patreon, creating classes anywhere from 1 to 4 times a week since November of last year. So you get access to all of my classes, all of my channelings, every piece of content that's there as long as you're a member. They're not downloadable. That's the only thing, but you have them.
And the great benefit as well for joining Patreon is not only can they connect with you, but they can meet other like-minded people and connect with them. And I know there's already a lot of friends that were made through the beautiful Patreon page of yours.
Yeah, we have one group that meets about once a week now in a Google Hangouts and talking to each other about what they're experiencing. And I pop in there about once a month. I wish that I had a little bit more time to pop in there more, but I'll pop in about once a month and say, hey, and surprise everybody and answer some questions because I like to, keep it fun like that. And with Blessings of Grace, since I started, I've been doing things about every other day on there now. So it's a lot busier than the original tier 2, which I did not expect. I thought it would be a lot less, but it tends to be a lot more.
Brilliant. Well, I'm sure all of us are excited to take this new journey with you.
Yeah.
I know a lot of new lessons and teachings will be coming out. And this is also our opportunity to move forward on our journey and discover more about ourselves.
It is. And Lynn, insofar as your question that you're asking me about when you get the tome, you get it the month that you join. It can be that day. It could be anytime within the month that you join. Be patient with me. I'm sending them out like anywhere from 10 to 15 a day. Right now, there's 300 people in queue, and I'm going as fast as I can, but you will get them that month. And if you happen to leave, then what you do is just email me if you haven't gotten it upon your leaving, and I'll have to look back at your record to see when you joined, and we'll get it. But I'm pumping them out as fast as I can right now. It's going pretty quickly.
Beautiful. Well, thank you very, very much, Pamela, for speaking to us today and sharing your experiences, what source tones are, because I've heard of source tones and I think it is amazing and so special. And we're looking forward to hearing so much more from you.
I'm looking forward to seeing how God wishes to create further with them, because I've been told that this is only the beginning of the journey. So I look forward to whatever that may mean in the future for the Blessings of Grace. Thank you, Priscilla.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speaking to you today. To speak to you. Brilliant. And thank you, everyone, for your wonderful questions. I wouldn't be able to do this without you. So
thank you so much. And if you want to find a really darn fine channel, you can find Priscilla. Would you like to give them your website and the spelling?
Yes. Yeah. ChrysillaLewis.com, and it's ChrysiLLA, and my last name is LEWIES. ChrysillaLewis.com. So thank you very much. And hopefully, Pamela, you can add that to the YouTube video. That'd be great.
Yes, I'll put it in the description below once we get to
make it easier.
Thanks. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you, Priscilla. Thank you, everyone.